Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to the Tata Chemicals Q1 FY22 earnings conference call. As a reminder, all participant lines will be in the listen-only mode. There will be an opportunity for you to ask questions after the presentation concludes. Should you need assistance during the conference call, please signal an operator by pressing star then zero on your touchtone phone. I now hand the conference over to Mr. Kevin Disa from CDR India. Thank you, and over to you, sir.
Thank you, Asad, and good day, everyone, and thank you for joining us on Tata Chemicals Q1 FY22 earnings conference call. We have with us today Mr. R. Mukundan, the Managing Director and CEO, Mr. Zarir Langrana, the Executive Director, and Mr. Nandakumar Tirumalai, the Chief Financial Officer. Before we begin, I would like to mention that some of the statements made in today's discussions may be forward-looking in nature and may also involve risks and uncertainties. I now invite Mr. Mukundan to begin proceedings of the call. Over to you, Mr.
Mukundan. Thank you, Gavin, and good morning, and welcome everyone to our quarterly earnings call. I hope all of you are safe, and I'm joined today with my colleague, as Gavin has already mentioned, Zarir Langrana and Nandakumar. Let me start the discussion with some key operating highlights across business and geographies, after which Nandu will walk you through our financial performance. To begin with, I think what we're seeing from the start of the year, the demand environment across all geographies has been positive. There has been a bit of the demand environment will improve further going forward due to we had a bit of a tough wave 2 in India, and I think we will see sequentially even further improving demand environment going forward. But compared to previous years, certainly the quarter 1 of the current year was a much better demand environment. The volumes have improved substantially, especially in soda ash, and we see across all properties the volume pickup has been fairly strong. As we said, that straight away diving into the challenges, the key challenges would be the rising input energy costs, the issue related to supply chain bottlenecks, which are happening mainly in the shipping area, and lastly, the carbon price in Europe, which has shot up to over 50 euros. Broadly, we have always maintained that as the volume picks up, as the utilizations improve, the ability of manufacturers to pass on price increases to customer also improves, and that we are seeing already. In the spot market, the prices are already up, and as contracts reopen, we expect the price improvement will continue sequentially going forward, even though in many of the contracts, the prices are still at the previous year or slightly below previous year levels. In terms of our units, all units have performed well, especially India has done well, North America has done equally well, and Kenya also has had a very outstanding run in terms of their volume, and we'll continue to see good performance. As far as Tata Chemicals Europe is concerned, while it's been steady, they've had the headwind of mainly the carbon price, which has impacted them, and we are putting in place a plan to deal with this, especially through cost improvement programs, both in TCE as well as in Kenya, where we expect that we have further efficiency improvements to be had, even though they've gone into profit zone. With respect to our salt business, that business has done well, largely driven by volume, and it will continue to grow well. Approximately, we had 5% growth, and that growth rate will be sustained going forward. Rallis did perform well domestically, and there was a seed business had a soft quarter. Overall, it contributed at pretty similar levels to what was the contribution which was in Q1. In terms of the 3 key priorities which we have already highlighted that in the presentation. The first one being to continue to invest and grow in India. We see good opportunity for all our businesses. To continue to focus on free cash flows and use that appropriately to reinvest in business, especially in India. And thirdly, to focus on the free cash flows to delever the international debt. These will be broadly the three pillars of how we will be operating going forward. In terms of the investments in India, we had highlighted about 2,700 odd crores would be invested in the Mithapur site itself. And that investment, capex investment, is on schedule. It is slated to increase the capacity of soda ash by about 20 odd percent. And the salt capacity would also go up broadly by about 30 odd percent. There are other products which will also increase in capacity, but for the sake, these are the two big drivers of the volume and revenue and bottom line growth. In terms of Rallis, they have a plan to invest about 800 to 900 crores, and that also is pretty much on schedule. I think both these activities, capexes, were a bit impacted by about few weeks of delay due to the pretty difficult COVID second wave. And we are working with all our partners to get them on schedule to meet our customer commitments, which have already been lined up. Overall, I would say that the theme remains the same, that recovery is back in terms of volume. The pricing recovery in spot market is already there. It would creep into the contracts as these contracts open up sequentially. At the same time, there are certainly cost headwinds which we are managing in terms of energy costs, in terms of the supply chain bottlenecks, and lastly, the carbon costs, especially in UK. I feel very confident that with the actions we have put in place, we would continue to ensure that the operations remain on a sound footing and we are able to address these challenges and navigate forward with growth and the investments which have been planned through and on the three priorities which I have already outlined for our future. Thank you. With these comments, I now hand over the floor to Nandakumar.
Thank you, Mukundan, and good morning to everybody. Before I start, you would have seen the update this time for the quarter ending June. It is slightly improved compared to the previous quarters based upon feedback taken from all. We hope you find it useful. I'll talk about the update in terms of 5-6 sections, starting off with standalone. I'll move on to US, UK, Kenya, Rallis, and Consol. On the India business, the revenue was up by 200 crores, a 32% increase over previous year. The EBITDA margin has improved by 4%. The PBT has gone up from 142 crores to 282 crores in the current quarter. This includes a higher other income due to dividend which came in the quarter one, and this dividend came in Q2 last year. So in a way, it's a dividend getting preponed from Q2 to Q1 for the current quarter. Coming to the US operations, the volumes rebounded from previous year and revenues have moved from 619 crores to 837 crores, increase of around 35%. The EBITDA has moved from 35 crores in last year's Q1 to 173 crores now, almost a 5 times jump. The PBT has swung back to profits this quarter after suffering a 119 crores loss in the previous year's Q1. In UK, the revenues have moved up by 29%. However, the PBT has, with the loss has gone up from 16 crores last year to 18 crores now, mainly because of the impact of carbon price, which Mukund spoke about some time back. In Kenya, because of higher volumes, revenues have moved from 100 crores to 134 crores, a large increase, and a loss of 2 crores last year is now a 16 crores profit in the current year. So mostly it's a volume-driven profit coming in Kenya. Rallis, the revenues moved up by around 11%. The profit, however, fell slightly from 120 to 109 crores due to pricing pressures affecting margins and increase in the employee cost and overall freight. At a console level, the revenues moved up by 27% in the quarter and EBITDA expanded from by 241 crores to 601 crores. The PAT has moved up from 13 crores last year in Q1 to 288 crores in the console in the current quarter. At the console level, the capex for the quarter was 323 crores. The net debt is 3991 crores, a small increase compared to March, mainly because of a small short-term borrowing taken in Singapore to fund the working capital there. And the exchange rate impact, because in the last 4 rupee has come down to 1 rupee, and 1 rupee impacting our borrowing is 100 crores impact there. So that is the update in terms of the overall numbers for the console. Now we can open up for Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and one on their touchtone phone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and two. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. First question is from the line of Sumant Kumar from Motilal Oswal. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Hello, sir. So my question is regarding India business, particularly basic chemistry margin at historically high at 30.4%, and we have seen this kind of margin in Q4 FY18 at 29.7%. So considering the overall higher fuel prices and other raw material prices, can you talk about, apart from operating leverage, any other reason for higher margin?
I think broadly it is volumes and also the fact that we have cost efficiencies as we produce more. And from time to time in India, we have been able to take structured pricing adjustments and discount adjustments with customers.
Okay, so we can say because of the discount adjustment with the long-term or annual contract or annual contract, that is one of the reasons for the margin expansion?
No, I think it's both input side. We have, I would say, some of our inputs have been managed fairly well. The operating efficiencies have been good because of high volume of production. And coupled with that, I think also that in the non-contracted volume, I think the discounts have come down. Even while the list prices would have gone at a slower pace, the discounts would have come down. So I think all these three put together have kept the margin at that level.
So what is the mix of the non-contracted business?
Sorry? No, I think
what is the mix?
Vary from account to account. We don't have to say that, but I think as demand environment tightens, usually the discounting reduces as a first step before the prices are increased. And as you know, sequentially in India, we've already had 2 price increases of 1,000 rupees each. And so first step you withdraw the discount, second step you start to increase the prices, and that's really what has happened.
So when we have increased the price, sir, in June, month of June?
Yeah, I think month of June, and there's one more which has happened in this quarter. So there have been 2 price increases, one in the previous quarter towards the last month of the quarter, and one more this month.
Okay.
So,
any inventory gain in this in the soda ash business this quarter?
No, not too much there. It's a normal gain, not extraordinary gain to report actually.
Okay. Can you talk about what is the spot market mix rough cut number in India business?
Which market?
No, in India, I would say, if you for sake of simplicity, India the pricing changes every quarter, so there's a quarterly reset. So India is much more aligned. So as prices move, every quarter the prices do move. So I think you could think in those terms. UK and US are more annual contracts with quarterly resets only for the Asia volumes for US. It's about 20% of the overall number.
Okay, and talking about my second question is, when we talk about a recovery, is there any pent-up demand in the US market or any other market? Because we have seen a TCNA volume of 580K tons. Lastly, we have seen in Q4 FY18. So is there any pent-up demand because market has opened in Q4 and suddenly the demand has surged? So is this kind of demand is going to sustain in the coming quarter, or that is going to normalize? Thank you.
Demand is going to sustain. There is no issue in terms of the demand environment as we see. Unless we see a very large third or fourth COVID outbreak, that's about it. So with increased vaccination, we feel that risk is slightly reduced. So that's really where we are. And I've already highlighted the risks are more on the input side, not so much on the market side.
So you still believe there will be a risk to the margin of higher fuel prices?
So
in the coming
higher fuel price is about the fact that the rate at which increases happen and the rate at which we can increase price. I think you can pretty much say either the margin will be maintained or towards the end of the year the margin may go up. So I don't want to make a very forward-looking statement, but certainly the potential for price to go up is much more than as contracts open up.
So last question is, we used to hedge our power for energy cost in US market. So is there any M2M gain in this quarter in EBITDA margin?
Yeah, that is there in the OCI, Sumant. So we had a large gain which is coming in the OCI, not in the PBT, in both in US and in UK.
So I didn't get, sir.
I'm saying, look at we had a gain on hedging on natural gas, Sumant, and that is accounted as other comprehensive income as coming in your reported numbers. And those were gains made both in US and in UK because prices went up sharply for natural gas in Q1, as you're aware, and we are generally hedged for the entire year.
Okay, so it is shown in the other income you are talking about?
Other comprehensive income.
Okay.
This being a cash flow hedge, Sumant, it's not a fair value hedging. So all the gains on gas hedging goes to other comprehensive income and flushed back to P&L whenever the actual the entire buying happens. So also all the positions are marked to market every quarter ending, and that goes into OCI.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
See, if Sumant, if you look at the numbers reported on stock exchange, 195 crores is the cash flow hedge reserve. That is the reported number that's the mark to market gain on the natural gas hedging in UK and the US. It's there on the first page of the P&L. 195 crores.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Participants are requested to limit their questions to 2 per participant. Time permitting, you may come back in the queue for a follow-up. The next question is from the line of Zaki Nasir from Northern Investments. Please go ahead.
Sir, congrats on a hearty set of numbers for the first quarter. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hello, am I audible?
Yeah, now it's better. Thank you.
Yes. Sir, I have 2 questions. Number one, how does the soda ash outlook look for you in the current year? How have the prices been behaving after the first quarter? Is number one. Number 2 is a balance sheet question. Whether I would like to know what is your cash holding, cash and cash equivalent holding, and how do you treat that? In terms of reporting as gross debt or net debt, sir. Thank you.
I will cover the question on the cash part. So we had on a console basis cash of 3293 crores. That's the cash on hand, mainly in India, Rallis and other geographies. Net debt is 3991 crores.
3991 crores.
That is the net debt after considering the console cash of 3293.
Okay, so approximately the debt will be around 771 kind of stuff.
That's exactly, yeah.
Thank you, sir. That's the console level.
At console level, yes.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I think that's sufficient. And what about the caustic soda ash prices, sir? How do you foresee these in the current year? Because I think last year they were pretty depressed.
So for us, caustic soda is a smaller play. It is not a...
No, I'm talking about soda ash, sir.
Soda ash prices, as I mentioned, the spot prices are already up. And it varies from market to market. But if you take Southeast Asia market as a benchmark, it is broadly up by about $40. We expect it probably will move up further. The contract prices are what they are. So as I mentioned, the contract prices today are either equal or slightly lower than the previous year. But as contracts open up, depending on the geographies, so the contracts open up in Asia almost every quarter, and the contracts open up in rest of the geographies by Q3 December end. They would all tend to go up in tandem. That's it.
And sir, one last question, sir. Tata Chemical has been the holding company for Rallis. there has been a lot of talk in terms of the merger, because there has been a structural change in Tata Chemicals, demerging of consumer and stuff like that. So is there any plan going forward that Rallis will become a part of Tata Chemicals, sir?
I'm unaware. If there's any such moves, we will announce as per the guidelines of SEBI and stock market.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Abhijit Akela from IIFL Securities. Please go ahead.
Yeah, good morning, gentlemen. Thanks so much for taking my questions. First, just on the US business, sir, a couple of things. One is regarding, any benefit from the royalty cut that was announced earlier this year. Are we seeing some benefit of that in the margins already, or is that yet to come? And then second, just wanted to check the any potential impact from this railroad disruption in the US on the West Coast, particularly, in the context of these forest fires, etc. Apparently, there's been some logistical disruption. So could we see some disruption to shipment for the next quarter or two out of the US to the export markets?
So on the shipping side, we are seeing logistic problems with respect to container movement, especially out of Kenya, and some ships availability, but we are not seeing any other logistic element. But I think they don't pose a huge challenge because we are now started to move material closer to customers so that we can service the customers much more efficiently. So the issue for us is fundamentally the cost to serve may go up a little bit, but I think we are getting a much higher gain by the customer having seen lesser risk to the supplies from us. So I think we will do whatever it takes to manage this bottleneck, which I mentioned in the opening remarks as one of the three risks. In terms of cost, of course, shipping costs are passed through to customers mostly, so I think that won't affect our overall margin element. In terms of the overall, what is your question on TCNA? You mentioned something about volumes, is it?
The royalty rate cut that was announced in January.
Royalty, exactly. We are not able to quantify. There will be some benefit, but clearly it depends on the mining plan. And the mining plan through the year is an equalized plan. So there are some places where there's a royalty benefit, some parts where there's no royalty benefit. And because the royalty has gone down, the team is actually working to make sure it can maximize it. But certainly there's a part of the benefit has flowed into the budget.
Sorry, you said a part of the benefit has flowed in this quarter.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. And the second thing was just on the soda ash supply outlook. If you could comment a little bit whether you're seeing any signs of life in terms of revival of old project announcements. And if I may squeeze in one other kind of similar question, it's on IMACID. We've seen a sharp jump in profits out there, probably consequent to the jump in phosphoric acid spreads. So how do you see that shaping up? Do you see this as sustainable for, say, the next several quarters at least?
So on IMACID, I would say certainly I think it is one of the most efficient producers, just the way our TCNA, Tata Chemicals North America is, because they have access to deposits. And I think they would continue to be the most competitive supplier of phosphoric acid, and we see that the margin maintainability is certainly a positive element there. It can go down a little bit, it can go up a little bit, but it will probably be range bound more or less in terms of elements, except when there is a huge sharp decline in consumption, which is a shock which you get once in 5-6 years, but not every now and then. With respect to the soda ash demand environment, I said it's positive. It was already turning positive towards the Q4 of last year. And Q1 of this year, it has turned more or less positive as vaccinations have picked up. And we see this is return to normalcy. So, and in terms of projects, I think as the demand environment stabilizes, people will re-announce the projects which they have put on the shelf. But I think even if an announcement is made, those projects would take at least 24 to 36 months to even the brownfield to see the see the capacities coming on stream. So our view remains that at least near term, there will be continued environment which will be fairly tight going forward. Unless, as I said, we have a very severe fourth or fifth wave which comes in, if it's there to happen, unfortunately. But with vaccination, that risk is lower. That's about it.
And we've not heard any new project announcements so far, right, sir, at the global level, whether it be in China or anywhere else, Turkey?
See, I think one of the things, the broad trend, let me say, the synthetic soda ash manufacturing is going to be a tough proposition going forward, mainly because of the CO2 carbon pricing. And COP26 meeting is due this year, and there will be very clearly some announcements made with respect to coal. There will be very clear announcements which will be made with respect to the carbon pricing and carbon mechanisms around the world. Developing countries will get some space and time, but I think in most parts of the world, especially in Europe, it's going to be an environment where I think the carbon price, and Europe has broadly 8 to 9 million tons of capacity and quota count out. So there the carbon price have already sharply moved up from 30 euros to 50 euros. It's an issue. So to that extent, I think we will have other competitive capacities which will gain ground. So even if capacities do come in, they will certainly be more carbon efficient capacities, which then can serve the global market. That is one piece which I just want to leave on the table. Second piece, which is on the demand side, is with every lithium carbonate project which is announced, if for a ton of lithium carbonate, you probably need about a ton of soda ash to produce that. So that demand environment is going to constantly move up with the electrification, which in battery and storage, which is already on. And thirdly, as the solar cell production picks up, the solar glass would constitute another big set of demand, which will continue to drive the growth of soda ash. So from supply side, you would find that carbon begins to put pressure on synthetic capacities, and the natural capacities, usually a large proportion of them, and the growth possibility in the world is only in USA and Wyoming. So that's really the overall scenario. Short term, things may move up and down, but that gives you a broad band of the way the market is headed.
That's helpful. Thank you so much. Wish you all the best.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of S. Ramesh from Nirmal Bang. Please go ahead.
Good morning and congratulations on the results, and thank you very much for the opportunity to ask a question. So, when you mentioned the prospects for additional demand from lithium and solar glass, is it possible to put a number in terms of the additional capacity that is required or additional demand that can be generated, assuming certain growth in lithium batteries and the solar panels?
Yeah. So what we'll do next quarter, we will come out with what are the new drivers of demand with a specific part of the investor presentation itself, so that it is much more logical and it's picking up data from all the projects. We'll do that for all of you.
Okay. And the next thought is, now if you're looking at the advantage you mentioned for the Trona-based capacity in the context of the carbon pricing impacting the synthetic capacity, what is the headroom you would have in the in TCNA to add additional soda ash capacity there, and how would the carbon pricing impact have to be addressed for that project?
So the debottlenecking project in US, which we are planning, is about 180 to 200,000 tons. So that's the current immediate plan. As soon as the market prices hold strongly, beyond that, I think we have to really go back to the drawing board and work on that. In terms of the overall differentials, again, what are the norms and how to look at the norms, we will include that in the next presentation, so that it's part of general information available to everyone.
Okay, just one last thought now. If you're looking at the soda ash cycle now, one gets the sense that you are possibly going to see tight market. So, has the pricing already reflected that, or do you see the dollar per ton pricing moving up over the next few quarters until you see new capacity catch up? Which is typical of most commodity markets. So, what is your sense on that?
The spot prices have already moved up by $40, but contract prices are what they are because they were negotiated at the peak of the COVID and where there was excess supply. So as these contracts open up, they would also move forward. But broadly speaking, today's contract prices are actually below the previous year contract prices which we had. So, but that situation would change every quarter as we move forward.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll join this.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Ritesh Gupta from Kotak. Please go ahead.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. Just one, sir. On the salt side, there is no profitability change, right, this time? And your pricing would be pretty much standard on a per kg basis to Tata Consumer that you said.
Yes. Salt broadly, the way it impacts, suppose the bottom line is volume led. So you need to track the volume. And as I said, our capacity expansion plan was to go from 1.1 to 1.2 and move from 1.2 million ton to 1.5. So those plans have been given, and that would be just volume at a constant margin moving forward.
Understood. And just on the ANSAC kind of getting disintegrated, I mean, how it will benefit or impact your profitability? Or how does it open more markets for you? Could you just brief us on that?
So I think this is fundamentally disintermediation as we move forward. I think as far as we are concerned, when we get closer to consumers and customers, and this has been long-standing request of our customers that they would want to have a direct relationship, and I think it helps us. The second thing is that when you sell through ANSAC, there is no visibility of where our product is going. Now we can build relationships with the customers and manage the customer margin. Portfolio of customer management can be done, so we can evolve in a very different way. If you look at it, right through the pandemic, one of the things which helped this company was a higher proportion of sales to distribution and detergent and container glass. And that, because that is more resilient, because that is more aligned to FMCG demand. So when we have the direct sales, we can also proportionately manage the risk and the cyclicality of businesses. Flat glass generally goes to automotive and real estate, which got impacted very badly due to COVID. Since we had a lesser exposure to that, we were less impacted during COVID as we move forward. So we will be able to do all that on the exports out of USA, which is why this direct connection to customer is important. It is to manage both customer portfolio, also customer margin. And also it's been a long-standing request of customers who want to deal with us directly.
Sure, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Dhavan Shah from ICICI Securities. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity, sir. So I have two questions. Firstly, about the power and fuel cost. So if I look at, the quarter-on-quarter growth for this quarter, which is roughly 30% in the revenue side, whereas, if I look at the power and fuel cost, it is down by around 9%. And we have seen, the inflation into the power and fuel. So I am unable to understand the delta over here, if you can able to understand. So this is my first question. I mean, if you can share thoughts on that, why the power and fuel cost for this quarter is down by around 9% on QOQ.
So I'll explain that, Dhavan. See, if you remember last time in the call, we spoke about in US where we had a one-off kind of impact on natural gas hedging in Q4, which is we had about 45 crores last quarter, which is not there this quarter.
Last quarter what happened was there was a big freeze which happened where in Texas the gas prices coming out of US, the prices spiked for about 3 days, and I think that impact is not there this quarter. So that's one. Two, I think in general as volumes pick up, the efficiencies improve. In fact, at lower volumes, the efficiencies are lower.
Okay. Okay. I think this kind of delta is maintainable over the coming quarters. I mean, in terms of the power and fuel cost, and we can see some more operating leverage to play out once the volume growth kicks in. So is this the fair understanding?
So wherever you see volume growth come on, where additional capacities keep coming on, I think the efficiencies will keep moving much more. It will become more and more efficient. So that's clearly because you're spreading the energy over a larger volume and you're able to throughput more. But I think where it is capacities are constrained and you're producing to the capacity, there's always a limit. So I think after that it is just going to be whatever happens to pricing will just flow through the P&L.
Got it, sir. And my second question is about the contract pricing. So you mentioned that the UK and US both have around 20% of the contracts on the quarterly basis, while the rest is on the annual contract. So roughly, these two geographies constitutes roughly 55% to the basic chem revenue. So is it fair to say that around 55% of the rest business, which is the India and the Magadi, and the rest part of the 20% part of these two geographies, so we'll see a pricing revision from this quarter itself, and we can see realization growth going forward for the next few quarters until we can see some maybe if we can see some pressure in the demand.
So UK is 100% contracted, so I think there will be no reset till Q3 end, which means no reset till December. I had mentioned about 20% of the US capacity is supplied to Asia, where there's quarterly reset, and India and Kenya would more or less be on a quarterly basis.
Got it, sir. That's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Ashutosh S. from Quantum Mutual Fund. Please go ahead.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yes, please go ahead with your questions.
Yeah, so I just wanted an update on the new businesses. If you can throw some light on nutraceuticals and energy business.
So on the two new businesses, silica and on the nutraceutical prebiotic business, they have shown a healthy growth, which you can pretty much look at in the standalone numbers. And we are waiting for further customer approvals to ramp up the output. So we would continue to work through that. Quarter one there was a bit of a slight impact with respect to COVID and some dislocation, which we don't anticipate in quarter two, quarter three. So they would continue to show increasing numbers going forward. So that's about what I can say. And you would also notice in the standalone number, they are tending to start to move towards at least becoming less and less EBIT negative, and I think that trend would continue every quarter.
Hello.
Yes, that I've addressed the question. Is there anything specific more?
I was asking you on the status of the energy business.
That has been explained even at the AGM. It is under review, and if there's anything specific, we'll come back to you.
Okay.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Rohit Nagraj from Emkay Global. Please go ahead.
Thanks for the opportunity, and congrats on a really good set of numbers. So the first question is on the newer capacities. So you explained the challenges for the new synthetic soda ash capacity in terms of the carbon pricing. So what would be an optimal level of soda ash prices where these incremental projects will be feasible, and that would keep a threshold in terms of the pricing environment at a particular level? Thank you.
So I think if you're saying what is the right level of pricing at which the new projects can come on, and especially projects in US, Synthetic purely depends on who wants to take a risk on expanding with the carbon environment as it is. So I really cannot make a commentary on that. From our side, we are very clear in terms of shifting the portfolio towards bicarbonate, even in UK, where we are doing carbon capture project to make sure we can capture the carbon and make it into a useful product. But our exposure to soda ash in UK, if you recall, is only 350,000 tons. It's a small capacity we have, and that we would increasingly move towards bicarbonate, and that's one of the reasons. But if you want a large scale, 1 million ton, at least I think it is a number which is not known, because even the carbon price is a moving number. Today it may be at 50. As the norms for carbon keeps tightening, we would find that the carbon price would keep moving up. So I really would not want to comment that. But with respect to the US assets, I think the prices need to move up a bit more for it to become viable in US for any additional capacity to be financially justifiable at the cost of capital.
Thanks for the answer. So the second question, in terms of the demand environment across geography, so has the demand come back to normalcy or recovering across geographies? And was there any impact due to the supply chain challenges because of which the supplies, there was an impact in terms of availability of the material? And how do you foresee these going forward given the current environment of supply chain challenges? Thank you.
A good question. I think the supply chain bottlenecks are an issue. And I think if your question is, do we see any pricing spikes because of localized shortages, I think that we don't want to take into account in our commentary, because they are very specific to a very narrow band of period. The only issue which it flows through is it increases the cost of servicing customers, and as I mentioned, it is also a pass-through. So we are very much aware that we want to be as efficient to our customers as possible, and we would want these bottlenecks to get clearly. We don't want to put any pricing number because of these bottlenecks. These are more about customer servicing and cost of servicing customers. So I would leave it at that.
Right. And if I can squeeze in one last bit. So sequentially in Indian business, we have seen lower volumes. But on the contrary, the margins have gone up, and despite being, facing the fuel cost increase challenge, any specific reason because of which the margins have been higher in the domestic business, despite the volumes being lower on sequentially? Thank you.
Sequentially, I just will give you the data. It has been 118,000, then it went to 151. Then in Q3 it was 168. Then in Q4 it was 184. So sequentially, if you take the last year, Q1 118, Q2 151, Q3 168, and Q4 was 184. So it has been sequentially going up. Your question about why has it fallen to 167 in Q1? This I mentioned, there was a severe COVID wave number 2, which created issues in the couple of months in the beginning of this quarter, because of which some of the sales could not be done. But we expect this would normalize because we are seeing the environment pretty much the COVID restrictions and all the labor, everything all returning to normal by the third month of, actually by June. We had started to see that normalize.
Right. Sorry, I probably framed the question wrong way. My question was, the volumes have been down, but on the contrary, our margins have been up despite facing some challenges on the cost front due to fuel. And at the same time, if the volumes are down, obviously the operating efficiency benefits would not have trickled in. So on the margins front, I was asking, on a sequential basis, it has gone up from 20% to 29%.
Yeah, I think the teams have worked out most optimal operations and contained the cost. Also, they always manage the increasing input costs with variation of input material from different sources. So they've done that piece well. And also, because the production was high, but the sales could not happen, there's a bit of an inventorization of that production quantity also, which happened in this quarter, especially in India. But those would move to the customers because right now the customers have started to open up.
Right. Thanks for all the answers and best of luck, sir.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Mahendra Nayak from CMS Investments.
Hello, good afternoon. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Yeah, I have a question regarding the balance sheet. We are having a lot of investments in related Tata Group companies. So can you quantify the amount of investments which we are holding in terms of market value?
There is an annual report issued sometime back, boss. It's all there. All the breakup is given there. How many shares we hold on that.
And are we having any plans to monetize those holdings to fund our future expansion plans?
This is really a board decision and a board call. All I can say is that from time to time, board has taken the decision. For example, we used to own TCS, we used to own Tata Global Beverages. All those shares have been monetized over a period of time as and when the need arises. So it's really a board call.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Saket Kapoor from Kapoor & Company. Please go ahead.
Yeah, Dhanyavad, sir, for the opportunity. Sir, I have this question pertaining to the US operations, sir. And sir, we took the remaining 25% stake from our JV partner for I think around 1,400 crores. So post that, what has been our rationalization in improving the profitability levels? And for the current year, sir, what are the current maturities? And for reasons our foreign subsidiaries are not performing at the optimum levels. So what are the steps that are in the annual that will improve the profitability both for the US and the UK, and also about this flue gas part of the story, sir, if you could throw some light.
So in terms of US, I think the issue really what we have had is that around the time, within a short time of acquiring those shares, the COVID impacted us and we went through a pretty difficult period. So I think it is more external environment which caught us completely off guard, and the team has responded well by reducing manpower and reducing people costs all the way through last year. And the focus was on generating cash. So if you look at really the cash flows, it was one of the highest free cash flow generating year where we actually managed the cash flows, made sure that the cash position of the company was always held well, despite reduction in sales volumes. As the market open up, I think you will see the efficiencies creep in. So I would rather wait for these efficiencies to come through as the sales volume continue to go back to normal. They are already getting pretty close to near normal with respect to the market demand. But in terms of pricing environment, they will in fact further improve by the time we hit Q4 of this year. So as I mentioned, we need to wait for 2 more quarters to get that, especially in the areas of contracts where it is open area. I think we will probably be resetting them every quarter. So that's on the commentary on the US. So we are pretty much focused on making sure we run an efficient operation. All things going well, it will continue to work as a pretty efficient entity. And we would focus on having cash flows pull through that entity and use that same for repaying the debt. As far as UK is concerned, UK has certainly much more degrees of freedom. They've got 2 product lines, as you know. They've got salt, soda, in fact 3 products, salt, bicarb and soda ash. Their salt has always been very profitable business and it continues to be profitable. The pressure point has been on the soda ash business, and bicarb also has been profitable. So we are doing everything we can in terms of addressing the current pressure which we have because of the spiking of the carbon prices from 30 euros to 50 odd euros. And we are preparing ground by which the transition through this, let's say, carbon transition is done in a very smooth manner. So that's the plan we are working to there. And I said already, the cost and the people rationalization plan are underway in 2 geographies through this year, which is the UK and Kenya. So that should address it. In terms
Sir,
of
for the, just a second, sir. So for the UK part, you told that we were collaborating with the government also for some carbon capture story that would play out in the near future.
carbon capture unit is almost complete. In fact, it was supposed to be hooked up this quarter, but unfortunately, in Q4 of last year, UK went through a difficult COVID, and they could not get some of the technical people to commission the plant, so they're undergoing commissioning now. So we hope by the time we come to Q2 of this year, we'll be able to report back to you that it's fully functional.
And how is it going to benefit us, sir, this carbon capture story playing out? I mean, margin accretive by what proportion?
We'll give you that number separately. Right now, I don't have it, but it's useful to make the bicarbonate product.
Right. And now my next part, sir, on the flue gas, and also how are we going to deleverage the US subsidiaries, the loan which we have taken and the current maturity?
The US constantly generates a positive cash, and we will use it. Even today, for example, it is sitting on numbers with the cash position.
Have you explained that to you?
Where? US.
We don't do the breakup.
So I think it is a positive cash generative unit, and as the unit gets back to normalcy, we will be in a position to sort of reduce it through the internal cash generation.
Okay. And on the flue gas part story, sir, for the domestic market, how is the acceptabilities and the power plant requirement? What kind of the sodium bicarbonate requirement can arise out of this flue gas opportunity?
I don't have the exact figure, but it is a new opportunity which has opened up. In fact, NTPC came up with tenders last year, and as the air pollution norms get tighter, it is an opportunity which will grow. We will give the data separately to you. I don't have it readily.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Jigar Shah from Financial Research. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, sir, for taking my question. Sir, I wanted a brief medium-term outlook on the specialty products segment. I think Q1 we had a turnover of 57 crores. So what is the medium-term outlook in terms of capacity utilization and further increase in capacity? If you could shed some light, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think, as I mentioned, we are at about 60-65% capacity utilization. We have to go to 100 by Q4. So hopefully by Q4 we will be reaching that position with more customer qualification coming on the way, and that's our plan as of now. And the plan is also to make it at least EBIT neutral by, or at least EBIT close to EBIT neutral by Q4, so that we can then talk about what additional capacity needs to go.
And so no fresh capex planned at the moment in this division.
No, we can put up a new capacity, additional capacity at pretty short notice. Our view has been that first make sure the current unit works and take it to profitability before we move further on this field.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Pratik Latija, a private investor. Please go ahead.
Hello. Thank you for the opportunity. Am I audible?
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead. Pratik, go ahead. We can hear you.
Yes, sir. My question is on sodium-ion batteries. There's a lot of research going on about replacing lithium-ion batteries with sodium-ion batteries. So my question is, does Tata Chemicals have any plans to enter into any research of sodium-ion batteries?
Yeah. See, we, as I mentioned, that the work is going on in our lab, and as and when anything specific happens, we'll come back to you. But the sodium-ion batteries have some distance to go before they become fully commercialized.
Okay, sir. Because one of the largest suppliers to Tesla recently announced that they are planning to commercialize sodium-ion batteries. So just a recommendation to the board to consider this option. And I have a second question about the bromine-based products. I think in the previous conference call you had mentioned that there are some plans to invest in bromine-based products. Do we have an update on this capex?
Bromine-based, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, my question is about are there any plans for any investments in bromine-based products?
Right now, we are producing to capacity, and we have some headroom to move further, but I think the team is evaluating it, and there's nothing specific for me to come back to on that.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of S. Ramesh from Nirmal Bang. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much for the follow-up question. Can you quantify the impact of the carbon price movement in the UK business? And similarly, what is the benefit you would have got from the royalty reduction in the US business?
So in terms of quantification, I would broadly say at the current numbers, the impact would be about 2 million pounds broadly per quarter.
That's the additional cost.
Okay. Yeah, it's range 1 to 2 million pounds, depending upon the carbon prices.
Yeah. So you should take it in between, maybe 1.5.
But it can vary, Ramesh.
And 1 to 2 million pounds. And second thing is, can we quantify the benefit you would have got from the reduction in royalty in the US in the first quarter?
Quantify what?
The royalty.
No. As I mentioned, there is benefit which is flowed in, but we normally don't get into that detail.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. That was the last question. I now hand the conference over to the management for their closing comments.
Thank you, everyone. I think what we have seen has been a continuation of what we mentioned right through Q4 of last year. Unfortunately, while the demand environment was improving in Q4, we were impacted by several one-offs, which has not happened in Q1. So Q1 has turned in terms of the operations on a positive side. We do believe that the operating demand environment is positive. It's improving sequentially and will continue to trend the same way right through the year and beyond that too. In terms of our focus continues to be to deliver the growth and investment in India, timetable of which has been attached, and we will continue to ensure that comes on stream. We also are focused on ensuring there is adequate focus on generating free cash flows and use those free cash flows to grow, as well as ensure that the balance sheet is kept in the right place. In terms of international operations, our effort will be to deleverage them. I think these are our 3 priorities going forward, and we'll continue to work on them, and thank you for your support.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Tata Chemicals, that concludes this conference call for today. Thank you for joining us, and you may now disconnect your lines.